The patrol schedule shows continuous coverage across District 8 for 6 straight seasons. One sector stops without a closure code. In the archive box, the final document is a folded topographic map, grid-marked and stamped for field use, edges worn from repeat handling. It labels a corridor inside the Absaroka Range, near the Slough Creek drainage line. 2 access trails, 1 former mining road, standard rotation. Adjacent sectors keep their patrol entries month after month. This one goes blank. No hazard notice is attached, no budget notation, no restriction order. The designation remains active on the map, but nowhere else. Records continue, the patrol does not. In the southeastern corner of Montana, where the Absaroka Range extends into what was then designated as Forest Service District 8, topographic maps from the mid-1970s show a corridor roughly 11 miles long. The corridor ran northeast to southwest, bounded on the west by Slough Creek drainage, and on the east by a series of unnamed tributaries feeding into the Stillwater River. Elevation ranged from 7,200 to 9,400 feet. The terrain was characterized by steep talus slopes, lodgepole pine stands at lower elevations, and exposed ridgeline above 8,500 feet. Summer snowpack persisted in shadowed draws well into July most years. Access was limited to 2 maintained trails and a decommissioned mining road last graded in 1958. The nearest staff station was 14 miles south at Woodbine Creek. District patrol schedules from 1968 through 1973 show routine coverage of the area during fire season, typically bi-weekly traverses conducted by 2-person teams. Weather conditions in the region were marked by afternoon thunderstorms common between June and August, with visibility often reduced below a quarter mile during squall activity. Winter conditions rendered the corridor inaccessible from late October through early May. The administrative boundary separating District 8 from Park Service jurisdiction passed within half a mile of the corridor's northern terminus, though no cooperative patrol agreements appear in the archived correspondence for that period. Cartographic references from the 1971 revision of the district map identify the corridor as Section 19T, a designation used internally for scheduling purposes, but not reflected on public use maps. Patrol activity in adjacent sectors continued without interruption through 1978. The earliest documentation of field activity within the corridor during the relevant period comes from a 2-man patrol conducted in mid-July 1974. The team was assigned a standard fire risk assessment traverse, departing Woodbine Creek Station on the morning of July 16th. Weather at the time of departure was clear, with temperatures in the low 60s. July 16, 1974. 11:20 hours. Reached mile marker 4 along the East Ridge Access Trail. Slope conditions stable. Pine canopy density approximately 60%. Ground fuel load within expected range for season. No active insect damage observed in sample plots. Visibility clear to the northwest. Wind negligible. Proceeding to checkpoint 6 per route plan, July 16, 1974, 14:35 hours. Arrived checkpoint 6, elevation 8,100 feet. Conducted standard assessment of drainage confluence below ridgeline. Water flow moderate, consistent with seasonal melt patterns. No debris accumulation noted. Refilled canteens at Creek Crossing. Afternoon cloud cover building from the west as anticipated. Temperature steady. Trail conditions nominal. Estimated arrival at turnaround point by 1700 hours. At July 16, 1974. 1750 hours, reached the planned turnaround point at the northern section boundary, conducted perimeter survey as outlined in the seasonal protocol. Terrain composition matched previous season's notes, no erosion concerns flagged, took compass bearing on return leg, 198 degrees magnetic. Weather holding, light wind from the southwest. Initiated return traverse at 18:05 hours. The team returned to Woodbine Creek Station the following morning without incident. Their report, filed on July 18th, noted no irregularities and recommended the corridor remain on the standard rotation for the remainder of the season. A second patrol was scheduled for early August. The August patrol departed on the 9th. The same 2-person team was assigned. Departure conditions were recorded as partly cloudy, temperature in the upper 50s, light precipitation overnight, but trails reported dry by 800 hours. The route plan mirrored the July traverse, with an additional task: placement of a fire weather monitoring station near Checkpoint 6. Equipment included a standard backpack weather kit, replacement rain gauge components, and installation hardware. Estimated deployment time was 40 minutes. August 9, 1974, 10:15 hours departed station. Weather stable. Barometric pressure 29.91 inches. Trail access clear. Proceeding northeast per established route. August 9, 1974, 13:40 hours. Approaching Checkpoint 6. Terrain unchanged from previous traverse. Pine stand density consistent. Ground conditions dry, no storm damage evident from late July system. Creek flow reduced from July observation, within normal range for seasonal decline. Preparing to deploy weather station per protocol. August 9, 1974, 15:20 hours. Weather station installation completed. Instruments calibrated and secured at ridgeline position 200 yards west of Checkpoint 6. Rain gauge oriented per standard alignment. Anemometer, mount stable. Initial readings logged. Resuming traverse to turnaround point. Cloud cover thickening overhead, but no precipitation anticipated before nightfall. August 9, 1974. 18:10 hours. Reached northern boundary turnaround point. Conducted standard perimeter survey. Observed compass bearing, discrepancy during return setup. Magnetic reading drifted 11 degrees east of expected value over a 3-minute interval, then returned to baseline. Repeated measurement with backup compass. Second instrument showed stable reading consistent with plotted course. Instrument check inconclusive. Proceeding with return leg using secondary compass as primary reference. August 9, 1974, 19:35 hours. Descended to Checkpoint 6 vicinity. Retrieved weather station for overnight data review as planned. Instruments appeared functional. Readings within expected parameters. Established camp 300 yards south of Checkpoint per standard overnight procedure. Twilight visibility reduced by cloud layer. No moon phase tonight. Temperature dropping as expected for elevation. August 10, 1974, 6:50 hours broke camp. Morning conditions overcast, temperature 48 degrees. Weather station reinstalled at original position. Final calibration check completed. Initiated descent towards station. Estimated return by 1100 hours. The team arrived at Woodbine Creek Station at 10:45 hours on August 10th. Their report, filed the same afternoon, noted the successful installation of the weather monitoring equipment and included standard observational data. Under a section labeled Equipment Notes, a single line appeared. Compass variance unresolved, recommend instrument replacement prior to next deployment. No further explanation was provided. The patrol schedule for the remainder of August and September shows continued coverage of adjacent sectors within District 8. No additional patrols were logged for Section 19T during the 1974 season. Archived route maps from the following year, 1975, show coverage gaps beginning in mid-June. The corridor was listed on the seasonal plan, but marked with a handwritten annotation. Pending review. No review documentation has been located in the available files. By 1976, the corridor no longer appeared on active patrol schedules. Adjacent routes continued to be serviced at regular intervals. The weather station installed in August 1974 was retrieved during a helicopter supply run in October 1975. The retrieval log notes that the instruments were intact and data logs were collected, but no analysis summary was filed with the district office. Section 19T remained unpatrolled through the end of the decade. District personnel records from the 1975 season show both members of the August patrol team reassigned to stations outside District 8 by the following spring. One transfer went to the Bitterroot Range in southwestern Montana. The other moved to administrative duties at the regional headquarters in Missoula. Neither reassignment was accompanied by explanation beyond standard rotation language. A request submitted in June 1975 for additional compass calibration equipment appears in the procurement log for Woodbine Creek Station, approved without comment. 3 compasses were delivered in early July. Testing records from that shipment have not been located. In September 1976, a district supervisor conducted a helicopter overflight of Section 19T as part of a broader aerial survey covering fire-damaged zones across the region. Flight logs from that date show the corridor was photographed from an altitude of approximately 1,200 feet. The supervisor's notes, appended to the overflight summary, contain a brief mention of the area. September 14, 1976. Aerial survey notes. Section 19T, overflown at 14:30 hours. Weather clear, wind calm. Photographic documentation completed per standard grid protocol. Visual assessment from altitude indicates no fire damage, no visible trail degradation, canopy cover consistent with surrounding sectors, drainage patterns normal, no unusual erosion or deadfall concentrations observed. Terrain accessible via existing trail network as previously mapped. The photographic negatives from that flight were cataloged and stored at the district office. They remained in storage until 1981, when a clerical review noted that 12 frames from the Section 19T sequence were overexposed and unreadable. The remaining frames showed terrain consistent with the supervisor's written observations. A notation in the 1981 review file suggests the overexposure resulted from a shutter malfunction, though no equipment failure. Report from the original flight date has been found. By 1977, internal scheduling documents stopped referencing Section 19T entirely. The corridor was not listed as closed, suspended, or under review. It simply ceased to appear in planning materials. Adjacent patrol zones expanded slightly to compensate for coverage area, though no formal boundary revision was issued. A handwritten margin note on a 1978 district map reads, "Coverage adequate via perimeter access." No signature accompanies the note. During the early 1980s, public-use trail maps distributed by the Forest Service continued to show the corridor's trails as maintained routes. Hikers who inquired at ranger stations about access to the area were typically directed toward alternative trails in nearby drainages. A 1983 correspondence file contains a letter from a backpacker requesting updated trail conditions for the Section 19T access routes. The response, dated 2 weeks later, stated that seasonal snowpack and erosion concerns made the trails unsuitable for recreational use and recommended postponing travel until conditions improved. No snow depth measurements or erosion assessments from that period are present in the file. The trails remained on public maps through 1987. Explanations for the discontinuation of patrol coverage in a designated wilderness corridor typically fall into recognizable administrative patterns. Budget reductions during the mid-1970s led to staffing cuts across multiple Forest Service districts. Priorities shifted toward high-traffic zones and areas with documented fire risk. Remote sections with limited recreational use were often deprioritized without formal closure procedures. Weather complications can render specific routes inaccessible or hazardous for extended periods, particularly at higher elevations where late-season snowpack and early autumn storms compress the operational window. Trail maintenance records from District 8 during the relevant period show deferred upkeep on several low-priority routes due to resource constraints. Equipment malfunctions are common in field operations. Compass drift, particularly in areas with localized magnetic anomalies caused by mineral deposits, has been documented in geological surveys throughout the Rocky Mountain region. Instrument failure under field conditions does not necessarily indicate environmental irregularity. Human perception during extended backcountry deployments is subject to fatigue, environmental stress, and cognitive bias. Subtle terrain features can be misinterpreted under low-light conditions or during periods of physical exertion. Decision-making by personnel operating under procedural frameworks often reflects organizational inertia rather than deliberate policy. Once a route is removed from active schedules, bureaucratic friction may prevent its reinstatement even in the absence of ongoing risk factors. Photographic equipment used during aerial surveys in the 1970s was prone to mechanical inconsistency. Shutter malfunctions, film degradation, and improper exposure settings frequently resulted in unusable imagery. The loss of a dozen frames from a single overflight does not, in isolation, suggest coordinated suppression or intentional omission. These factors, individually or in combination, account for most cases where wilderness patrol coverage is quietly reduced or discontinued. What remains unaccounted for is the absence of a closure directive. Standard protocol required that any route removed from active patrol status be documented with a justification code, budget limitation, hazard assessment, seasonal restriction, or administrative consolidation. Section 19. T carries no such code in any archived file. The corridor was not closed. It was not restricted. It was not reassigned. It continued to exist on maps, in planning documents, and in district records as a designated patrol zone requiring coverage. And yet no coverage occurred. The weather station installed in August 1974 collected data for 14 months before its removal. Those data logs were retrieved intact. They were cataloged. They were filed. No analysis was ever conducted. When a piece of monitoring equipment is deployed, standard procedure dictates that collected data be reviewed to justify either continued placement or removal of the instrument. The logs were neither reviewed nor discarded. They remain in storage, unopened. A request to reinstall the weather station was submitted in 1977 by a regional climatologist compiling baseline data for a multi-district study. The request was denied without explanation. The study proceeded using data from surrounding stations. Section 19T was not included in the final report. In 1989, a revised district map consolidated several administrative boundaries following a regional reorganization. Section 19T was absorbed into a larger management unit and ceased to exist as a distinct designation. The trails within the corridor were reclassified from maintained to unmaintained status in 1991. Public access was not prohibited. Trail markers were simply removed during routine signage updates. Hikers may still enter the area. No permits are required. No warnings are posted. The corridor remains part of the public wilderness system. It is not closed. It is not forgotten. It is simply not serviced. Archived patrol schedules from District 8 are stored in a regional facility outside Billings. The files occupy 4 linear feet of shelf space. Coverage maps, personnel rosters, and equipment logs are organized by year and cross-referenced by sector designation. Section 19T appears in those records for 6 years. It disappears without annotation. The maps that followed show routes curving around the corridor, patrol teams assigned to adjacent drainages, helicopter flights scheduled over neighboring ridgelines. 11 miles of wilderness accessible by trail, monitored for decades, and then quietly excluded from operational planning. No order was given, no explanation was filed, but the archive remains open. If you found this account worth preserving, consider adding your voice to those who keep these records accessible.